On this edition of Afro Link San Diego, we meet Dr. LaMar Hasbrouck of the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Hasbrouck has turned a college football scholarship into an opportunity to become a doctor. You don't want to miss his story, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Well, the state of Michigan is taking the West Nile threat very seriously.
Tonight, state and local health officials hosted a health summit. The informational public forum was held at a community center in Farmington Hills. Health experts were there from the CDC and the National Institutes of Health to address West Nile concerns.
Second message is that while it is epidemic and there is cause for concern, there is no cause for panic.
Dr. LaMar Hasbrouck was born and raised in San Diego. He attended Crawford High School and won a football scholarship to the University of California at Berkeley. In 1987, he was suspended from the big game between Cal and Stanford for putting schoolwork before football.
I ended up missing a midweek practice for a big game, for the big game, which is a big rivalry against Stanford, UC Berkeley and Stanford. And ended up missing that because I had to turn in a paper and thought it best just to spend that practice time finishing it up and turning it in late, actually, and missing that practice. And because I didn't get approval to do that, because I didn't call and let them know I was going to miss it, the head coach felt that he should make an example of me. I was a little bit disappointed. I was actually pretty angry, and I didn't think that I should be the kind of the sacrificial lamb for that type of ideal. I didn't think he really had much compassion and understanding about the priorities of academics versus athletics. But I kind of stomached it, and because I was a captain, and I wanted to be an example, and I think leaders have to lead even during times of adversity. Preparation, you know, had I been more prepared. I mean, what I've learned in my travel up to this point is the importance of accountability. And I understand that I have to be accountable to be prepared for the game. I have to be accountable to be prepared for my classes. So in that case, because my timeline was off, I was forced in a situation where I had to make a choice between sports and academics at that point in time. I think I made the right choice, but I think because of some of the poor earlier choices in my preparation, because it wasn't ready on time, that I had to be accountable for that. No one in my immediate family had graduated college, so going to college, you need to know what it takes to go to college. So you need to know that you need to prepare for the SAT, take it a couple years early, study for it. You need to know about looking in and researching colleges and things like that. And so I was working with a very large deficit in that I didn't have parents that had traveled that road before me. And so I was really trying to discover that on my own. Crawford, being a public high school, was probably a fair or mediocre high school in that sense, academically. So I didn't have advanced placement units going into college. I didn't have college courses going into college. But something happened to me in my first year at Crawford High School. And what happened was significant in that after my first semester, I was informed by the principal's office through a letter on official letterhead that if I kept my grades up, I would make the principal's honor roll, which was a 3.0. And caught me by surprise. But it validated for me that I had the intellectual ability to perform academically. And I went on to be awarded principal's honor roll 5 of the 6 semesters that I was there. But even with that, and even graduating in the top 10% of my class, when I went to Berkeley, I was completely blown away. And as a result, I had to take remedial everything at Berkeley: remedial math, remedial English, remedial chemistry. And that was my beginning and introduction to UC Berkeley. So in a sense, although I was a first-year college student, I was really taking high school courses, catching up while being a college student, doing those two things simultaneously. And at Berkeley, where the enrollment is about 30,000, and you're at the premier public institution in the country, you recognize very quickly that you don't stack up very well to the others. And so you can do one or two things. You can doubt yourself, give up, pack up and go to the junior college, go to the state university or go somewhere else, or you can canvass the environment for the resources that you need in the way of support from counselors, other students. You can fortify your belief in yourself and do what it takes to get through. And that's what I did. And I learned that very early on from my mother, that integrity and that survivability and that accountability, that self-determination. So although I wasn't academically prepared, I was prepared emotionally as a person to gather up what I needed to make that transition. When I graduated high school in 1983, what was valued was diversity. In fact, the motto for UC Berkeley is excellence in diversity. They recognize that if you get diverse folks from diverse backgrounds together, that you're better for that. So as a result, they had a program where affirmative action counselors would go out and do outreach into the schools. They did outreach at Crawford, and fortunately enough, my name was given by a guidance counselor there at Crawford as somebody with promise. And although I was, I received probably what I would consider now a mediocre education, I was in the top 10% of that high school, and somebody recognized promise in me and put me in touch with this affirmative action counselor. That affirmative action counselor began to orient me to college, to Berkeley's campus, to their programs and things like that, and basically turned the light on for me about my chances to go to college, which is something I never really thought about seriously. As a student athlete, you have to work 3 times as hard because you have to take care of your schoolwork, and then you have to do all the commitments that are associated with the sport. And in college, being in a major league like the Pac-10, which Cal is in, it's a full-time commitment. And essentially, the scholarship athletes have a job. Their job is to play football. When you're playing college ball at that level, you're in practices, you're watching tape, videotape, game film, you're traveling, you have to prepare yourself athletically and intellectually, emotionally. You're on the road days at a time, and then you have to still do your academic load. And typically that's not lessened, so you have to be a student and you have to be an athlete, you have to get your sleep, you have to take care of yourself and do laundry and other daily things. So it's about 3 times as hard, and often as a result, one of 2 things happens. Either the athlete takes a very, very light load and underachieves academically to balance that out, or you're just going through a lot of pains to try to keep up, especially if you want to go into professional school, you're pre-med or something like that. And often folks don't understand, students don't understand, coaches don't understand the commitment, the dual commitment that it takes. So it's very difficult. But if you're organized, again, and if you're accountable for your actions, it can be done, and it's done all the time. Yes, it's worth it. It was definitely worth it. I feel, I think anybody that finishes something should be proud of themselves. And so that degree, for me, that bachelor's degree at UC Berkeley represents, it's just a piece of paper, but it represents the completion of something. It represents the notion that I can start something and finish it and get that degree. So I think anybody that finishes anything should be proud of themselves for the accomplishment of finishing. The fact that I did undergraduate in 5 years instead of 4, that I played football, that I worked part-time to support me going to school, and that I stayed focused enough and didn't get discouraged to continue to try to move on to higher goals and higher aspirations, makes me feel proud of that. I don't think it's probably, I don't consider it my greatest accomplishment because I consider myself a survivor, a fighter, and somebody who doesn't accept or embrace the limitations that other folks put on me. So I never once doubted that I could finish it. I did come to certain points during that journey where I thought that maybe I should give up football, because the one thing you recognize very quickly is that football hurts your academic chances, your academic performance, and academics hurts your football performance. So you have to kind of try to balance that out. I understood early on in learning the politics of sports and just learning about what it is to be an athlete, that everybody is not born with athletic ability, but everybody pretty much is born with a sound mind and the ability to achieve intellectually and academically. So I understood early on that my best chances in success for life was through academics. Probably the biggest highlight for me as an athlete was when I got a recruiting letter from an NFL team. It was the Cincinnati Bengals. And it was really kind of a kick to get it, but I recognized that I wasn't a good enough athlete to go to the NFL. And I was completely at peace with that. I think there were two things that helped to formulate me wanting to become a doctor. One was the early exposure in elementary school at Choice Elementary, where I grew up, of a substitute teacher that was African American who was studying for his dental school admission test. And it was the first real significant encounter with a positive African American male role model, and someone who wanted to do something larger than his circumstances. He wanted to become a dentist. So as a result, he shared with us, you know, the science around dentistry, the teeth and other things about cavities and other things like that, and turned the light on for me of the possibility of possibly aspiring to be a professional of any type and in the health field. Then when I got into Berkeley and I got on campus, I touched ground and I realized that I was interacting with folks, students from all over the world, and students who came in there with clear aspirations and goals to become doctors and lawyers and attorneys, engineers and other things, that since I was there, I may as well aspire to do something large like that too. Why not? You know? And so at that point I decided, well, I'll be a doctor. I'll be a doctor because I remembered, I connected my own personal upbringing and my own personal situation, and I remembered very clear deficits in health. I remember folks in our community who were suffering from alcoholism. I remember the amount of violence that was in our community. I remembered the malnutrition, the poor nutrition in our community, the teen pregnancy and things like that. So I recognized that we never had preventive health care back then. And so I recognized one of the ways I could make a contribution was through health. And so hitting the ground at UC Berkeley, I decided I'm going to set a very lofty goal for myself, and maybe I can be a doctor. I wear a lot of hats. I'm a researcher, I am a physician, I am a professor. What I do on a daily basis mostly has to do with research, and that entails asking questions and trying to answer them through the literature or through surveying folks or through other types of ways. Some of the questions we might ask ourselves is, why is community X so sick? Or why is violence among young people epidemic? You know, why are young people killing and hurting other young people? And so research is really going about the business of answering that question. So that's what I do mostly. And the way I answer that question is through a number of different ways. But that's the research piece. Then I'm a professor. And in that role, what I do is I see patients, I supervise other doctors in seeing patients, and I make sure nothing slips through the cracks. Dr. X will see a patient, a young doctor will see a patient, come back and present it to me, tell me what he or her saw, what they heard, what the lab results read, give me their interpretation of how to handle that problem, and then I will coach them through that and make sure nothing's missed. In addition, I'll go in and meet that patient, interact with that patient, and make sure that patient's questions are answered, and care for that patient also. So that's what I do as a physician. As a professor, I also give talks, lecture to undergraduate students at Morehouse College, graduate students at Morehouse School of Medicine, and that's probably one of the funnest things that I do, because anytime I have the opportunity to share knowledge and to help turn the lights on for young people, it's very, very, very rewarding. I think most folks have or at least years ago, used to have the notion that a doctor, a physician, was a 50-year-old white male with salt and pepper hair and a crisp white jacket. Well, I don't look like that. I'm never going to look like that. So being a physician, a doctor, a professor, a researcher has to do with what's between your ears, with your brain. And in some instances, white folks, as well as our people, suffer from misconceptions of what a doctor is and what a doctor can be. So when I go into the rooms of white patients, and when I go into the rooms of some black patients, they question, well, who are you? You look a little young and you don't look like my image of what a doctor should be. And so I find myself doing education, okay, education by example. And when I open my mouth and they understand the knowledge that I have, and they understand that I can bond with them and understand their circumstances, then all of those barriers fall, and then I can take care of them. So it's a challenge, and it's something that you recognize that there are stereotypes out there, that there is individual racism and institutional racism out there, and it's simply something that you recognize. You don't use it as an excuse. You may have to do extra education of patients, families, and things like that. But at the end of the day, if you are a true professional, if you are a committed physician and scientist, and if you want to make that person better, that person will depend on you. I was speaking with some 10-year-olds, 10 and 11-year-olds, at that play Pop Warner here in San Diego at Skyline. And little did they know that, you know, many years ago, I was who they are. And I was on a knee with my helmet off, tired after practice, and look what I grew up to become. And so when I can share with them that who they are now, and what their circumstances are now, has nothing to do really with what they can become. And when they get that message and I can transfer that to them, that's extremely rewarding. Then when I go to the university and I speak with, in particular, African-American young men, that's very, very rewarding. I went into a room one time. I was invited to speak on some things, motivational speaking, or some things on career development and how to aspire for something larger. And I went into a room, and I didn't know what the audience was going to be. I just knew they were undergraduate students, and it was at Morehouse College. And I walked into the room, and in the auditorium was about 100 African-American men, young men, aged 18 and 19, just about to start at Morehouse College. And I was just floored, you know, because here was a group that represents me, and a group at a very significant time in their life, just about to start their possibilities of undergraduate college. And I had the opportunity to say something to them. And at that point in time, it was very profound and significant. And I took very seriously the things that I would impart in them, because I had a rare opportunity to plant seeds in them. And I used my personal story, and I often cover my lowlights, which often folks don't get. They see the polished professional, say, oh, his mom was a doc, his dad was a doc, he comes from money, he's on that side of town, he had no worries. So I share with them my lowlights to let them know that there's obstacles and that I was not born with that silver spoon. And then I begin to see them sit up straighter, get more animated, get engaged, and I begin to see them believe in their chances, that they can do absolutely anything, that their potential is boundless. And when I can make that connection and leave them with that, you know, I feel very, very rewarded. For me, the way I achieve is by attaching something larger than myself to my goals. So if it was just about me, I might be fine with being a physician and making a whole lot of money. To me, that's a very egocentric way to live. And it's a way that's not really contributing as much as you could to the larger world around you. So what I do is I attach larger things onto my dreams and goals and aspirations. So right now, the larger thing is a whole entire city that's suffering from a lot of health issues and health maladies. And that's what I want to attach myself to and bring my skill set to improve the lives of other folks. Well, I don't know. You know, I've been to a lot of places and I've seen a lot of things, and I recognize that a person with my passion and commitment and skill sets and larger vision needs to be in a place that's supportive of that, needs to be in a place that is progressive, needs to be in a place that has room for visionaries. And I don't see San Diego as that place for me at this point in time. I need to be in a place that needs me, that embraces me, the spirit that I bring, the vision that I bring, and that has the resources to allow me to work the magic that I want to work in that particular city. And then I need the lifestyle. You know, I need to be reinforced by cultural things and African American people and lives and things like that. So I need that cultural richness to ground me. And San Diego doesn't have enough of that for me. I often share with audiences that I have a formula for success, and that formula has to do with not accepting the limitations that other people put on you, being accountable, and other things. And then I have a secret weapon. And my mother is my secret weapon. And what I mean by that is she instilled in me certain seeds of integrity, of humility, of perseverance, of determination that has been so important in me guiding myself oftentimes to success. And so I am who I am as a result of my mother. I have 3 daughters, age 5. One will be 4 next month in October, and one is 1.5. 3 daughters and a wife, so 4 girls, myself. My wife is extremely supportive and my other secret weapon, and allows me to do the types of things that I need to do and invest in my dreams. No one would have at that point in time looked at me, understood my background, and said, this person is going to be a great person. This is going to be a great person. This person is going to become a physician. This person is going to make a contribution to the world. Nobody would have picked me out. And what I want the audience to know is that you don't know what kind of jewels you have right in your own backyard, in your own family. That wayward cousin or family member that's having problems in class, that's climbing roofs, climbing the roof of the school as I did, that's jumping the fence after hours as I did, that's getting in trouble and suspended as I was. You never know what you have there. Martin Luther King Jr. Said something once that resonated with me, and that was that we all have the power for greatness, because greatness is determined by service, not fame necessarily, but we all have the power for greatness, not fame, but greatness, because greatness is determined by service. So we can all be great, and we can all do great things, but it starts with self-determination, and it starts with the support of folks around you.
You've been watching Afro Link San Diego, dedicated to presenting positive images of African Americans for all San Diego.